Okay. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Fernanda. I am the Statewide Senior Manager of Community Engagement for HOPE. I will be our moderator today for this HOPE, our webinar, Elevating Your Leadership Through State Appointment Services. We have two amazing guest presenters today, Lisa Chin and, of course, Dolores Duran-Flores. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. And thank you all for joining us on this webinar. I know you're taking time out of day and we really appreciate that. Today, we will be covering why it's important to serve on boards and commissions, the appointments process, the application process, and some tips on how to navigate your own appointments journey. First, I'd just like to give a little introduction to boards and commissions and what are they. So commissions, boards, and committees are vital to government. These appointed board members in your community and state and even your federal government provide guidance and recommendations on specific issues for consideration, sometimes even overseeing large million-dollar budgets and oversight. There are many public appointments and boards that do not require expertise, and Lisa and Dolores will elaborate on that. And there are a bulk of appointments like this that need to be filled. There are, of course, different types of appointments, including local, state, and federal appointments. Local appointments are those city and county appointments, municipal levels. They typically deal with issues regarding directly impacting the community, such as city planning and even local law enforcement. Federal appointments, of course, are a little bit more broad, and they can be in the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of federal government, dealing usually with national policies and large-scale federal appointments. Today, though, we will be focusing on state appointments, specifically here in the California state appointment process. State appointments refer to positions within the state government. These are made by the governor and the state legislator office. And while our focus today is the California process, a lot of this information that is going to be shared today is applicable to all appointments at all levels, including other states. So here at HOPE, we are very grateful for the strong partnerships that we build and continue to foster in the different appointments office, the Assembly, the Senate, and of course the governor's office. And we are very excited that there is a new appointment secretary for Governor Newsom, just appointed. She's a strong champion of Latinas, and she is a Latina herself, Secretary Morgan Cabral. We are excited to continue to partner with her in this new role. And now I will actually go ahead and introduce our two guest speakers and our long-standing partners, Lisa and Dolores. Lisa Chin has served as an appointments director for the Senate's Rules Committee since December of 2017. For the previous 4 years, she served as Deputy Chief of Staff and Policy Director for the Pro Tem's office after serving as Legislative Director in the Senate and Assembly since 2006. Prior to returning to the legislature, Lisa worked in the Service Employee International Unit, SEIU, the California State Council for 5 years as a government relations advocate, as a legislative analyst for the Office of Planning and Research under the Governor Gray Davis administration, as well as a research analyst for the Industrial Worker Commission and the Department of Industrial Relations. Lisa is from Richmond, California, and first moved to Sacramento region to attend college. She has a BA in History and Political Science from the University of California at Davis, and first served as the legislator as a Senate Fellow in the office of the former Senator D.D. Alpert. She holds a judicial degree from UC Davis School of Law and has been a member of the California State Bar since 2001. So that's Lisa. That's a lot. Thank you, Lisa. Now I'd like to introduce Dolores Duran-Flores, who's the Director of Assembly Appointments for Speaker Robert Rivas, where she carries up all aspect of Speaker Rivas's appointments to hundreds of state boards, commissions, advisory boards, committees, and task forces. Dolores joined Speaker Rivas' staff in 2023 after serving nearly 2 years as principal consultant at Speaker's Renda's appointments unit. Dolores acquired an expertise in assembly appointment matters and often speaks on appointment panels for the Speaker, as she is doing today. Thank you, Dolores. Dolores has served a decade of legislative and policy experience both inside and outside the Capitol. She has served as a legislative advocate for the California School Employees Association for 20 years, working on legislative policy and appointment issues prior to joining the Assembly Appointments Unit. Dolores began her work in the legislature soon after graduating from the University of California, Davis, with a bachelor's degree in political science. She was first hired by Assemblymember Lucille Robles Aldar's legislative aide, secretary, and backup scheduler. Within a year, Dolores hired as a chief of staff to Hilda Solis in the Assembly, and later in the Senate, where she helped Solis pass landmark legislation of women, the environment, and healthcare. She managed a large capital and district office staff and was responsible for the Assemblywoman's legislative agenda. Dolores also served as chief of staff to the late Assemblymember Marco Fireball. Dolores and her husband Joe reside in Rockland with their daughter Mia and their dog Flo. So thank you, ladies, for that. We're so excited to have you here today. I'm going to now open up our PowerPoint and let you get started. So just one moment.
I just want to thank everybody for attending, and also to Hope for inviting us to participate. We do like PowerPoints to kind of help get our message together, and both Lisa and I are going to do this jointly. Lisa and I go way back. We went to the same college, and we were legislative advocates together, and now we work in the appointments unit together. So I like to start with this first slide because it gets the message out that all boards and commissions are created through state statute. This is where it's made through the California legislature. They have hearings, and there's specific reasons why they have an appointment have specific criteria, or that they're members of the public, and it's debated out there. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a good way to start the presentation, and just note that new boards and commissions are created every year. I think in the better budget years, more were created. There's not as many kind of working their way through the process this year, but it's always evolving, and there's always new entities being created or phased out. So it keeps it definitely interesting, and we are always looking for appointments to fill everything that's new and existing here in the legislature.
Okay, Fernanda, next slide. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about our appointments unit in the State Assembly. I'm Dolores Duran-Flores, and I'm the director of Speaker Rivas's appointments unit. Bob Hartnagel is one of the deputy chiefs of staff for Speaker Rivas, and he oversees our department. Natalie Rojas is our executive secretary. She does so much more in appointments than that. She's my right hand. She's great. And we also get the assistance of the Speaker's policy unit. They have expertise in every policy area in the state. So we call them in to help us out with appointments. So, and together, this is our group that handle all appointment matters for the Speaker. Lisa?
Thanks for the slide. This is our team over here in Senate Appointments Unit over in the Senate Rules Committee. I'm here as the director. It's about my 7th year serving in this position. We have 2 deputy directors here, Amy Wilson and Anita Lee. And then our support staff is Sydney Short, Elisa Jimenez, Marina Gonzalez, and Carla Landers. Together, we run our shop here. We actually, I should note, we have 2 sides to our operation here. We oversee the facilitation of the process for governor's appointments that have to come through the confirmation process. We process approximately 200 appointments a year. It could be anything from UC regents to agency secretaries, Barbarian Cosmetology Board, Medical Board. There are roughly 700 governor's appointments that are in that category. And then the other side of our shop is parallel to Dolores's, the Speaker's office, in that we help facilitate the legislative appointments, and we'll get into a lot more detail on that. And I would just note that there are Senate Rules Committee appointments and pro tem appointments, but they're all collectively Senate appointments.
I just wanted to say a little bit about the speaker and his role in the appointments. He is the exclusive appointing authority for the state assembly. We don't have to go through our rules committee, and there's no confirmation required. So once the speaker makes an appointment, it's final. This speaker, he represents the 29th district, and he's the 71st speaker in the state. He makes over 330 appointments to over 200 boards. Many boards have more than one appointee, so that's why you see a difference there. There are a few exceptions to him making exclusive appointments. There's a couple, like one we share with the Senate, and that's for the CalPERS board, where both the speaker and the president pro tem both make that appointment. And then nominees to the governor who makes the appointments, like a nomination for the military council, for example. So our process is different from the Senate and from the governors in that the speaker is exclusively the appointing authority.
And then on our side here in the Senate, as I mentioned, we have Senate Rules Committee appointments. That's about 90%, 95% of the appointments that we do. And those have to go to the Rules Committee for final action and consideration. So there's more steps to our process on this side. We also have some that are pro tem appointments that are very similar to governors and speaker appointments. And then that's the final, in terms of finalization of an appointment, it just needs to be processed by our office. And then we also have over 330 legislative appointments. Many are similar to the speaker in that, you know, we have public member appointments to a lot of boards under the Department of Consumer Affairs. But then there's also a lot of differences. Depending on what the statute says, we may have certain criteria that we need to fill when considering our appointments, and the speaker's office will have a different set of criteria. And it's all depends on the unique statutes that put together all of the boards and commissions. So we are always looking at the statutes to make sure that we are looking at the eligibility criteria and making sure we're meeting all those qualifications. And then there's also noting that we do have a different process from the speaker and the governor. Sometimes, you know, in terms of the process, sometimes applicants think that if they apply to one entity, they've submitted to all entities, but we all have separate applications and separate processes.
And I just want to take a moment to talk about what you're attending today, the Elevating Your Leadership Through Straight Appointment Services. I think it's really great that Hope provides these kind of opportunities for Latinas to really understand what kinds of opportunities are out there to provide them with state service opportunities. It really does my heart good to see so many Latinas out. I mean, your voice is important. Our voices are important. And I'll have to tell you that we do reach out to Hope quite a bit when we are looking for qualified Latina applicants. And, you know, we've been very successful with that. And I'll talk to you a little bit about more of that later, but I do want to say Helen Torres, she's fantastic. And I think she's the CEO of Hope, and all of the staff, including Fernanda here today. So thank you.
Yes, just also a few words of thanks. This is an amazing recruitment opportunity for us in terms of reaching prospective applicants. We're always looking for new applicants, and we always have multiple positions that need to be filled. So it really helps to be able to have a resource like Hope connect us with people that we can explain the process to, demystify the process, and get applications in the door. So really appreciate it.
So I just want to globally let you know what the steps are for our legislative appointments process. We are going to focus on just a couple of these, but recruitment is what we do first, and that's kind of what we're doing today. I look forward to receiving applications as a result of our presentation today, but we do attend other panels, and you know, we speak to a lot of groups about appointments. So that's part of our recruitment process. The application, we'll go over that more in detail, but that's a really important step in the process. We do conduct interviews. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in our discussions today. And background checks is another part. It's the final part in our appointments process. It's a very important part. The application process. So we've been asked to focus much of our discussion on this. And I think personally, this is the most important step in the process. It's because if we don't have a completed application, no appointment can be made. That's just the rule. Always fill out the application completely and sign it. Signing it is really important because that gives us the ability to do background checks as well. Can you hit the link on application, please? It won't open. Okay, well, this is a picture of our application. It's just several pages long. It's pretty easy to go through it. And we always ask that if something doesn't apply, just write not applicable. So we know that it's been completely filled out. Lisa?
Yeah, I would just note, our application is very similar to the speakers, that it starts off by asking, boards and commissions that you're interested in serving on. I would note that if you're not sure or don't know of anything specific that you're interested in, you can also leave that blank and we'll process it as a general application. And then when we get to the interview process, we can talk about interests and potential fits. So don't feel that you need to fill out on our application specific boards or commissions, because they may not have openings at that given time. But there could be other opportunities you're not aware of that we can help explain and fill you in on.
So hopefully these links work. This is the speaker's website. And if you can hit the first link, hopefully it will take you there. Okay, so if you can make it bigger so we can scroll down a bit. This is the speaker's website. This is where people can go to apply. If you hit click here, this gives you a list of boards and commissions. Go ahead. So the blue at the bottom, if you can hit that, that's our application. And this again is all online. You can get a copy of the application here. You can fill it out online. You can go ahead and scroll through the whole application so they know it's not really that long. But it's really important things that we need in order to match you with the board and to make sure that there aren't any potential conflicts of interest. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, Fernanda, can you go to the next link? No, go back to that same link. Yeah, that one, the first link, and I will show you a list of the boards. So if you hit click here, that will take you to where the application is, as well as a list of boards. So go ahead down to the blue ones, the last blue one. That takes you to all of the boards that the speaker makes appointments to, and I believe it's the same for the Senate. Lisa can talk a little bit.
It is. Yeah, thanks, Dolores. It is the same. Sometimes, as I mentioned, the criteria might be slightly different, but in a lot of cases, it's the same. We're looking for public members that don't have expertise. So you can see the wide array of topics covered by the legislative appointment world here.
So I just wanted to walk you through our process, and when you fill out the application, the email that's there, it automatically gets sent to that email. So visit our website. I think it'll help you get more familiar with our process.
Okay, and then on the Senate appointments application, you can email us to get a copy of that. We also have a fillable PDF and can help you navigate through the process. If you have any questions about the questions on the application, we're happy to help you with that. I'd also point to the governor's appointments website, also contains the huge directory of all the legislative appointments with all of the background information, the list that Dolores just pointed you to. Every single one of those listed boards and commissions has a page on the governor's website that will talk about, what was the statute that created that board or commission, how many positions there are, what's the criteria for each slot. The governor's office has several more appointments than the legislature on all the boards and commissions, but it's a great resource because you can see all the duties and responsibilities, all the different eligibility criteria, and even has information on like frequency of meetings, websites to get to the boards and commissions, which is also a great resource. If you're interested in a particular board or commission, go to their website and look at their agendas. You could see all the different types of issues they cover. So the governor's website is also a good starting point to do some upfront research on boards and commissions you may be interested in serving on.
All right, well, the application process, a lot of people are really concerned about maybe their qualifications. They'll say, well, I don't have an expertise on this board. For example, let's say the state bar. The state bar, the speaker has an appointee who has to be a lawyer, and another one who just has to be a member of the general public, cannot be a lawyer, could never have been a lawyer or be married to a lawyer. So there are very specific criteria, but when you get people and you often ask them to apply for a board that says it's a general public member, they're already, no, I don't have the expertise in that area. But the legislature has determined that it's important to hear the voice of the public on this issue. They want to hear this. For instance, the state bar board, they discipline lawyers. They look at disciplinary actions. And I think it's really important because members of the public, sometimes they do interact with lawyers, and we love to hear their voices, and their perspective is very important on that. But then you have some specific criteria too, like the board on accountancy, you're just a general public member, but the other boards, like the medical board, again, is a board that doesn't require a lot of expertise either. In fact, you cannot be a doctor to be appointed by the speaker. The governor has the doctor appointees. So there's a mix, but they share which appointing authorities get which appointees. And in those cases, we get the general public ones. So please don't be intimidated that you don't have possibly the expertise that you need. We really need the perspective of the public. And Lisa's going to go a little bit more into the conflicts of interest issue.
I would just add that the vast majority of our Senate and the Assembly appointments are for public members, especially to the consumer protection boards under the Department of Consumer Affairs. So we are looking for applicants that are not licensees. Dolores is spot on that the governor has the vast majority of those appointments, but we are looking for the perspective of someone to represent the public, people that have life experiences that would add value and voice to the boards and commissions. On conflicts of interest, in addition to you can't be a licensee yourself, have a financial interest in the profession, be married or closely related to someone that is a licensee. We're also looking to make sure on the dual office holding issue, like if you're a local elected, sometimes if that local government has any interaction with the board or commission, that could be a conflict of interest, and that would trigger this dual office holding issue. Incompatible offices issue is sometimes how it's also referred to. So we take a look at all of this in the vetting process. That's why we do interviews. Sometimes it's not top of mind for the applicant, and we don't expect you to be an expert in all the conflict of interest laws and provisions, but that's why we have the discussion on that in the vetting process.
And also,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you done, Lisa?
No, I'm done. Yeah.
Okay. Also on the dual office issue, local elected officials, they can serve on these boards, but they have to truly be advisory. They can only be advisory boards, or if they're specifically called out in statute. Like on the Coastal Commission, they specifically require certain local elected officials to serve on that board. So
that's a really good point. And we also look to legislative council sometimes to make sure we're 100% following the laws here.
So here are the application tips and pitfalls. I think this is important for everybody to know. I think, again, don't limit yourself on the boards that you choose. Sometimes people have their heart set on one board and somebody's in that board, maybe for 2, 4, 6, or 8 years. So you could be waiting a long time if that's the only board that you will consider. So make sure that you look at other boards and go outside of your comfort zone. I think that opens more opportunities for you. Include your skills in your volunteer work, because sometimes when we're trying to match boards, that might fit into a different board that you may not have been considering. So that's why that's a really important part of the application. Never skip a part. Also, right, like if it doesn't apply, right, it doesn't apply. But it's really important that you fill out the application completely. Always disclose any potential conflicts of interest. We do have questions about if you have ever run for office, or if you hold office, or even if you've ever been convicted of a crime. Those are important. A lot of reasons too is that, I mean, the speaker understands people have a past, and sometimes we do things we regret when we were younger, but it also helps us because if you have a DUI, we don't want to put you on the DMV board. So we have to make sure that we are fully aware of these things, because the background check will pull it up anyway. So it's important that we hear from you first. Always include a resume or a bio. Include letters of recommendation, and also check for errors. You'd be surprised how many errors we actually get on these appointment applications. And the personal statement, it's my favorite part of the application, because this is your opportunity to tell your story, who you are, where you came from, why you want to be appointed, why you would be great for this board. Lisa, do you want to go over the pitfalls?
Sure. I would only just add one note, also on the application, when you're including all your biographical information, we have a section on our applications that say memberships, organizations, and that shouldn't be limited to anything that's just related to what office you're seeking. We like to know, if you're serving on the PTA, or, even little league, all kinds of extracurricular activities. That adds to the resume, so we can kind of see the full person and all the different experiences, and it may lead us to thinking of potential opportunities that we wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So we really appreciate all of that context. Under pitfalls, not having the time it takes to serve is a big one for sure. If you're researching whether or not you're interested in serving on a board or commission, take a look at their agendas. Sometimes they have meeting minutes. You can see how long the meetings go. A lot of the Department of Consumer Affairs board, they meet quarterly, so 4 times a year, but they could be 2 full-day meetings. So that should be taken into consideration. We never want to get a call from, a board or commission saying we're having quorum issues because your appointee is not showing up. So you have to be honest about, the time that you'll be able to commit to it. And we'll talk through that during the application or during the interview process. And that's fine. This is all public service. A lot of these positions aren't highly compensated. Due to your work schedule, life issue, you can't serve on something that is every month. Maybe something would be a better fit if it's less frequent meetings. And sometimes, meetings can be like once a month, a couple hours. That might be doable. Once a month, 6-hour all-day meetings, maybe not be doable. So it's important to be aware of the duties and responsibilities that go into the position before taking it on. And if there's any questions, we also facilitate, contacting the board or commission, finding out more information, any questions, just to make sure it's a good fit before we move forward. Another pitfall, selecting just one board, as Dolores mentioned, don't limit yourself, keep an open mind. If you have your heart set on something that doesn't open up for 4-6 years, maybe you can serve on something else to see if you like service before, and then wait, keep us asked to be kept on file for that board or commission. So if there is an opening that comes up, you're already on our radar that you're interested in that. Not signing the applications also sometimes happens. We need the signature to run the background checks. So we can't even start the process until that's completed. And then not completing the application and not disclosing. Many times I've had to have an awkward conversation where something's not disclosed, but it comes up on the background check, and then I'll have to go back and have the discussion. If you're not sure whether or not you need to disclose something, that's why we're here as a resource. We could talk you through, and we will recommend either, yes, you should probably disclose that, or no, that's outside of what the question is asking. So sometimes it just takes a conversation to walk through the different questions on the application. Errors is another thing that comes up frequently. Just, spell check, double check before submitting. And then, yeah, not notifying your references. That's also can lead to an awkward situation for us. So that
Yeah,
is
I also just want to say, not having the time to serve, there are several issues I have dealt with this year about that, and people just resigned because they're like, oh gosh, I thought I could, but I couldn't. So you really, really have to ensure that you have the time to participate on these boards, because it becomes a problem for everyone if it doesn't work out. Also, notifying your references, that is very awkward. And I've called a few where people says, oh, I didn't even know I was listed. What is this board? So make sure you do that notification. And then also with regard to boards, I know there was a question in your chat about whether or not they're paid. There are very few boards that are actually paid. I think there's only 6 or 7, and those are all filled. But on these boards, for the most part, they will reimburse you for travel and, necessary expenses. So it's not something you're going to get paid for. The interviews, that's the next step after the application process. We interview the applicants. Sometimes there's just a couple of interviews. Sometimes there's many. There could be 3. I usually start the first interview doing some screening, trying to match people with a board. And then the second interview is more substantive when I bring in the rest of our crew, the deputy chief of staff for the speaker, one of the deputies, as well as our policy staff. And we get very substantive about, the board. And also we just talk about your background and see if it would be a good fit. It's usually done by Zoom right now. When sometimes the speaker will do an interview as well. So that's our interview process.
very similar on our side. The initial interviews with myself, and then our deputy directors, Amy Wilson and Anita Lee. Sometimes we will bring in pro tem's policy staff. Chief of staff may be involved as well, but typically, we started off with just an initial interview, learn about interests, and then try to think of matches. Maybe give you a few boards and commissions to research to see if any of it piques your interest, and then get back to us. So it is a lot of back and forth process on our end as well.
So here are the interview tips and pitfalls. So first of all, be flexible in scheduling. We have a lot of people on our end. We're trying to schedule, and the legislative process calls people away. We have a lot of deadlines. So please be flexible if there's any way possible to accept the scheduling options. We'll provide you several options. Please try to accept one of those. Be on time. It's really hard when we have our interview scheduled back to back and someone comes in late, sometimes 5-10, and we won't wait that long. So please make sure you're on time. Dress for the interview. Sometimes we have people coming in with t-shirts and, different things on it. Just make sure you dress like a business attire. Minimize interruptions. Sometimes we're on a Zoom call and somebody will be driving or sitting in the passenger side while they're in the car, or there's construction going on at their home, and just try to minimize the interruptions. Do some homework on the boards. Most of these boards have their own websites. Like Lisa said, you can get on, you can read about the topics that they've discussed and maybe how many board meetings they have a year. Be prepared to ask questions about your application. Sometimes people just aren't, so make sure you're ready. If you have any questions, the interview is the time to actually ask them. Lisa, do you want to do the pitfalls?
Sure. Yeah. I would just note, I forgot to mention on that last slide, a lot of our interviews, sometimes we actually use conference calls, but sometimes it's Zoom. And the flexibility on scheduling is key. In addition to working on Senate appointments, we're also, do have a lot of interviews with governor's appointments pending confirmation. We have hearings that take up most Wednesdays. So sometimes it's hard for us to fit in a lot of these interviews. So we really appreciate when folks are flexible in scheduling. Pitfalls, not showing up on time. We also don't wait. If someone doesn't show up in the first 5 minutes, sometimes we have interviews stacked. We just can't wait. We'll just either have to reschedule or try to figure something else out. Maybe, wouldn't be until the next week sometimes if we have to get back on calendar. And then all the other pitfalls listed, try to minimize distractions, know something about the board. If you know specifically the board you want to serve on, do some research on that. Talk about how you could add value to that board or commission. And not disclosing conflicts of interest is a big one, because if something comes up after the fact, we will have to loop back and possibly ask you to modify your application to reflect it. And it also might disqualify you from serving on the particular board or commission. And that's statute talking, not just us. In terms of the eligibility, we have to make sure that the appointments that we are making are all valid.
So the background checks, like we've said several times, we do perform background checks. And again, the speaker understands people have a past, but it's really important that you disclose it up front, because we do a lot of research in trying to get you matched on a board. And then to find out later there is a problem, that's a lot of work that we've conducted on it. So please make sure that you disclose any potential problems. Answer the questions and we'll discuss them. Like I said, the speaker understands people has a past.
Same on our end on those points. We also perform similar background checks. A lot of issues, for example, a DUI, it's not disqualifying, but we request disclosure on the application, and that there's a question, a yes/no question on the application about any criminal history, and then we ask for a short explanation on that. And if you are struggling with what to put in terms of explanation, we're also here as a resource, so we could talk you through that on the phone in terms of how much we would request that is disclosed.
And then the final stages, like I said before, the speaker makes all of his appointments. And when he's deciding on his appointments, he takes into consideration the application, somebody's resume, the interviews. We brief them on the interviews as well. Support and opposition that we may have received regarding a particular applicant, and their background checks. And what's really important to the speaker is that diversity. He wants his boards to truly reflect California. So when we're talking about appointments, he'll often ask, whose voice is missing, right? So that's why we're here today. That's why we often do our recruitment, to ensure that our appointees reflect California. I do say be patient, because sometimes this process takes a while, sometimes months. The legislative process gets in the way. The speaker has a lot of obligations in the legislative process too. So, and we also are balancing many boards at the same time. Remember, we have over 330. So if you haven't heard back from us, don't be worried. You could check in with us. We make sure that we respond to emails as well. If you're not selected, try again. Don't give up. If it's not this board, ask to be considered for another board.
And just add that we're also very mindful of diversity of all types, including geographic diversity. We're trying to make sure that California is reflected in all the appointments that we're making to boards and commission. We look at not just diversity globally, but also diversity down to the micro level on who's currently serving on the board or commission. And as Dolores said, what voices are missing. And also, yes, be patient. The process takes time. And in the next slide, a couple other final points to make. As I mentioned at the front end, the Senate Rules Committee takes action on the vast majority of our appointments. So that means we have to have the committee meet. And we're currently in summer recess, but we're heading into the last month of session. After that, we will have very limited opportunities. And sometimes, I mean, it's possible we're not able to pick up and finalize appointments again until January, when the new legislature convenes in January. We only hold the hearings during legislative session. So our timing is sometimes driven by that. And, summer recess, interim, and then, as Dolores said, everything else that's going on in the legislature, sometimes the opportunities to actually get the appointments through the final stages are limited. So be patient. Feel free to check in with us. We're able to provide updates as soon as we can, or at least let you know, like, we think, next few weeks, or we're going to have to wait until the next year. So we can give you kind of a general timeline, but it's hard sometimes to predict when we're going to have the opportunities to actually finalize appointments. I think that's
Okay, well, I just wanted to also let you know that Latinas are on a lot of high-profile boards. With regard to the assembly, the speaker just appointed somebody that Hope actually recommended. Her name is Cynthia Grande, to the State Bar Board of Trustees. She's an attorney. She was for our attorney seat, and she has an amazing story. And we're delighted to have her. We also have Latinas throughout all of these boards: the Cradle to Career Data System Board, the Racial Equity Commission, the High Speed Rail Authority, the Coastal Commission. I think we have 2 there. The Earthquake Early Warning Advisory Board, I think that's a Hope member as well. The Housing Partnership Corporation, and the Board of Psychology. And these are just a few. I just wanted to give you an idea of Latinas who went through the process and have been successful, and they're representing our voice on these important boards.
I would just add, I did also kind of look through our list of appointees, and to add to Dolores's list, I can say on the Senate side, the Commission on Special Education, Arts Council, South Coast Air Quality Management District, CalAccount Blue Ribbon Commission, Early Childhood Policy Council, the Board of Environmental Safety. Diana Maya from Hope previously served as one of our appointees to the Bureau on Private Post-Secondary, I'm going to get this wrong, it's a Bureau for Private Post-Secondary Education Advisory Committee. We also had Hope alumni serving on the Accountancy Board. We have a lot of openings for public members currently on a Department of Consumer Affairs Board, so we're hoping that all of you apply and we can get you started in the process.
We also have some openings with the Department of Consumer Affairs boards. It's a pharmacy, and I think occupational therapy, those kinds of boards. And we have many, many more boards that have Latinas in it, but these are really high profile ones, and the ones that Lisa mentioned too. So we have a seat at the table. We just need more. Post-appointment, so it doesn't stop at the appointment process. We expect people to attend and participate in these meetings. We often check attendance, and not only attending us checking attendance, we do get calls from boards and commission staff who say, hey, like Lisa said, we have a quorum problem, or your appointee hasn't attended. We had one who hadn't attended 3 or 4 consecutive meetings. That's a problem. So if you have any questions, our staff is here to help you. If it's a appointments question, I'm here. If it's about an item that's coming up before the board, or if you don't feel comfortable yet with the policy that the board deals with that you were appointed to, we have policy staff that will spend time with you, will walk you through it, will give you, as much information and try to help you be as successful as you can. We're here to help you. And we just want our appointees to be successful. So we're here.
Absolutely the same on our side. We do check attendance as well. Especially if you're coming up on the end of a first term and you're seeking reappointment. If you only went to 1 out of 4 meetings, the previous year, I think we would question whether, it's a good fit for you to continue on that. If you have stellar attendance, I think that definitely is huge consideration in reappointment process. We do request updated applications, especially if it's more than a year old. So that is one thing to keep in mind. But also with the understanding that life changes, sometimes, we've had appointees that had to change the amount of work they could do or dedicate to a board or commission due to, life changes, caregiving responsibilities. We're here with the open door, feel free to reach out to us. Maybe there'd be something else that's a better fit. But we'd rather hear from you directly than hear from the board or commission, is always the preference. And also, as Dolores mentioned, if you run into any issues while serving on a board or commission, a policy issue you're not too sure about, we also are a resource here, connect you with the pro tem's policy staff or policy committees if you need additional background or if you just feel unsure about something. We definitely want everyone to be successful.
And I just want to thank all of you for your interest in public service. It's so important to have your voices on these boards. We appreciate the time that you've given us to walk you through the process and hope this information has been useful to you. And I look forward to receiving your appointment applications. So thank you.
Same on this end, and always appreciate, all the HOPE invitations to help present what we do here in the legislature and team up with Dolores, who, our careers have intertwined many times over the years. So the fact that we both ended up in appointments is always fun for me. So always feel free to reach out, even if you're not sure yet if you want to submit an application, feel free to call and I'm happy to have a conversation.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. We're so appreciative of all of this. We will be opening up 2 questions in just a moment, but I did want to say a special thank you again, ladies. And also, HOPE recognizes that serving on boards and commissions is very important. We also recognize that it can be a little bit overwhelming. It was a lot of information today. This session, of course, is recorded. You can always go back to it. We also launched the Latina Appointments Collaborative last year in the hopes of getting more Latina women on boards and commissions. Our Latina Appointments Collaborative is an online toolkit, and I will drop the link in the chat, but you can go ahead. I will share my screen so you can take a look on what that looks like. It is very important to note this is not a guide. This is not an application. So like Dolores and Lisa said, you still have to apply on the actual page. But this is an online tool that you can use to find articles on things they mentioned, like more in depth, what does that look like? What does application look like? Where to find appointments, not just in the California state, but also in cities and counties that are more local to you if you don't feel like maybe you're not quite ready for a state appointment yet, or maybe you don't have the time to commit to one. Local appointments and boards are so important and they contribute a lot to the local community. So I will go ahead and share that. We do encourage you to sign up, get guidance on that. Cynthia Grande, like Dolores mentioned, was someone who signed up for this Latina Appointments Collaborative, went through that process, and we helped her guide her through her process, and now she's on the state bar. And like they mentioned, it was a lengthy process. This did not happen overnight. It actually took a couple months for her to go through that process, including the application, the interview, the follow-up interview. So please be patient and continue to apply. We hope you all get involved and continue for the applications. I will now open it up to any questions that you might have. Oh, Dolores, were you going to say something?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And Lisa and Dolores will go ahead and answer them. I know we have a few moments, so I will let you all do that now.
I know they asked about a copy of the presentation. You're welcome to give it to them. I don't know how you'll do that, but yeah.
Amazing. Yes, we will be putting this recording on our webpage. We will also be putting on the Latina Appointments Collaborative. So again, great place to go for any articles, blogs, and this recording itself. Okay, I have a question here. It says, hi, can we talk about the benefits of participating on boards and commissions for professional development, both in short-term and long-term?
Professional development, I guess you develop an expertise. You absolutely do on these boards and commissions, particularly if you're a public member. You are immersed in that policy. If you're actually, for instance, if you get an appointment, I think we have, you know, for a professional board, I'm trying to think of one. Yeah, I think we have a geologist. If you're a geologist, you are meeting with other people in the science community. You're developing those relationships. You're getting those contacts. You may have other geologists on the committee, and you're meeting with members of the public. So I think that's really important in terms of professional development. Lisa?
I think it's a great opportunity to, for example, I was just thinking of like the different types of boards and commissions. You know, some of them are advisory, and so they're, you know, influencing policy. So to get hook into that process and work with the administration, I think would be beneficial. Also just gaining the experience of how government works and implementation of laws. Here in the legislature, you know, all the bills that are passed are implemented by the administration, and a lot of these boards and commissions are promulgating the regulations that are actually implementing the laws. So I think that's great experience. Also, you know, the boards and commissions, they have lengthy onboarding processes, and so having access to all of that knowledge and help in learning and developing expertise in a policy area, I think would be also beneficial. And then see a question about time limit for appointments. Sometimes there are term limits. For example, a lot of the Department of Consumer Affairs, they're 4-year appointments, but no more than 2 terms. Some appointments are pleasure appointments, and so you can serve as long, you know, ongoing until, you know, you are replaced or you step down from that. Some appointments are only 2 years long. Some are 8 years long. It just depends on what the statute says.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. 2, 4, 6, 8, and sometimes you're serving out the remainder of the term of somebody who have left. So that also counts as well. We
Yeah,
have about half and half, I think, in terms of appointments that have terms and some that are pretty much pleasure appointments, which means that the appointing authority can remove you or keep you there for whatever time they want to. So.
Okay, I see this question that says, I'm already a commissioner on the status of women in my city. Can I apply for the same commission for the state?
That's one I would seek counsel advice
yeah.
on, because, you know, you can't serve on 2 government bodies. I'm not sure about the local one, but we would definitely consult with counsel to make sure there are no problems with that.
Yeah, for example, if the state commission awards grants to the local commissions, I don't know if that's a disqualifying issue or if it's a matter of recusal. Sometimes if there is a conflict, it's just you can't participate in the actions on one or the other, but it would have to be fully vetted.
Great, amazing. Are there any more questions for Lisa and Dolores? Here's a question about the elected. If you are interested in running for elected position in the future, is that something that you would recommend disclosing?
In the future, I think when they run is probably at some time they should let us know, because sometimes boards, you know, if they're elected, they're no longer qualified to be on some of these boards. So they should at least apprise us of those things. I mean, the best policy to me is more disclosure is the best, so we can vet them.
Yeah, we're here as a resource if there's any question about that. We prefer, you know, contacting us so we can research it, talk it out to avoid any potential issues.
Great. And the last question before we wrap up, is there a way to see which boards have vacancies? I know you both talked about that. Could you please reiterate?
That's a hard one because it changes all the time. And sometimes, you know, even if someone's serving in a term position, they resign early, it could lead to an opening. Sometimes I mean, I would just say it's hard. We don't have a list that we keep up to date every single day on
Yeah.
what's open.
And the same for us. I mean, sometimes people get really disappointed when a board is already, we filled the vacancy and didn't have time to notify people, and they get real upset. So we don't list the vacancies, but we do try to match boards with you. And if that's a specific board you've identified and we talk to you, we let you know if there's no vacancies or not once you've submitted your application.
Yeah, and if you're in our process, because it also takes months, there could be, we could be vetting like 5 applicants for a particular spot, and then you're coming in on the end of that. And so it's just hard in terms of timing. Or on another thing I would note is that, we're aware, like if someone's term is coming up, maybe in 6 months from now, they're not eligible for reappointment. We know an opening's coming. And so if your application comes in the door, we think you might be a good fit, we'd probably start talking to you about that leading up to when the opening is actually there.
Hey, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you again for Lisa and Dolores. We hope you can join us on our next Hope Hour. I believe one of my team members can drop that in the chat on when our next one will be. Again, we did record the session, so we will be having that on our webpage soon if you want to go back to this or find additional information on there. Again, I would recommend you join our Latina Appointments Collaborative for all of your Latina appointment needs and to get some more tips and tricks on going through that appointment. So thank you again, everyone. We appreciate you spending your lunch hour with us, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Everyone.